Hello everyone, no one of consequence here, back again with a new video. This is episode 65 in the series, which recounts my ongoing Dungeons & Dragons campaign, which is now in its 10th year. So as always, spoiler alert, in this video I will be revealing details found in this adventure module. And as a reminder, here is the current party makeup for the Descent into the Depths campaign. We have 8 player characters being controlled by 5 different people. And again, here are the party's NPCs. One change from last time. They've now gone down from 13 to 12 mules because, if you remember from last video, Thorol's riding mule was killed by the giant slug. At the end of the last video, the party had just arrived at a huge natural cavern, which held a drow checkpoint, among other things. Riding ahead, Varys learned that the leader of the drow checkpoint was from a pro-Loth house, and she gave Varys permission to bring the party's convoy through that great cavern. But she also warned that there were several humanoid tribes living in this area who might try to attack and loot the caravan. Gorbanak had previously scouted ahead and discovered at least 2 dens of trolls dwelling near the entrance to the great cavern. The party's original plan was to use silence spells so that the caravan could hopefully sneak past the trolls without being heard. But then, at the last minute, the plan was changed. The characters decided to leave the Sergeant Major, Rabnuno, and Quan with the caravan, while everybody else went forward to deal with the trolls. They decided it would be better to deal with the trolls up front rather than risk them attacking the caravan while it was passing through. Gorbanak was dubious of this new plan due to the sheer number of trolls he had seen while scouting. He also suspected that there were even more trolls nearby which he had not seen. However, he agreed to go along with the other characters' plan. This screenshot shows Sergeant Major, Quan, and Rabnuno waiting with the carts while the other characters went forward to deal with the trolls. Thorol first cast a haste spell on the party to temporarily double their attack and movement rates. Meanwhile, the trolls, alerted by the light and noise of the character's approach, began moving up to investigate. Aramis immediately kicked off the battle by rolling a fumble, as you can see pointed out here. More trolls suddenly appeared from a previously unnoticed tunnel behind the party, near where Thorol was standing alone. Niobe and Aramis rushed back to help him, while Thorol threw a flask of oil at the trolls. He scored a critical hit against them. Again, you can see the result pointed out here. Back at the other battle site, a troll scored a critical hit against Obrak, and it rolled max damage to boot. Then, to add insult to injury, Varys rolled a fumble and hit Obrak for even more damage. Niobe also rolled a fumble, which resulted in her losing her backpack. And here's another critical hit from a troll on either Obrak or Varys, I don't remember which. Luckily, this time the damage roll was the minimum possible, but it could have been much, much worse. Here's yet another critical hit scored by a troll on either Obrak or Varys. I don't remember who exactly. Soon, Varys rolled another fumble, and this time he lost his backpack. You can just barely see it on the ground underneath a troll, as pointed out in this screenshot. A new problem for the characters was that the trolls, which were defeated early in the battle, were now beginning to regenerate and rejoin the fight. So it was critical that down trolls be set on fire as quickly as possible to prevent this from continuing to happen. So Niobe and Gorbadoc dumped flasks of oil on a pile of dead trolls, while Thorol used his lantern to light a torch and throw it on them. Back at the other battle, Varys scored a critical hit on a troll. But unfortunately, yet more trolls could be seen moving up from the tunnel to the south. At this point, Gorbadoc said, "I told you all there are a lot of trolls in here." At the southern battle site, the pile of burning trolls drove away other trolls which were trying to join the fight. Niobe started burning trolls at the north end of the battle, while someone else managed to toss an oil flask down the north tunnel. I don't remember exactly who it was. Varys pushed further down the tunnel, planning to use his flaming sword to ignite the oil. Also, Gorbadoc, who was still invisible at this point, moved further down the passage leading northeast to scout for potential threats approaching from that direction. I realize the screenshot is hard to see because it's dark, but Gorbadoc entered a narrow tunnel when suddenly more trolls began running past him. They were clearly on their way to outflank the party. I required Gorb's player to make multiple dex checks to dodge the trolls' feet as they ran by. Luckily, he succeeded in all of them and remained undetected. Because the party was still under Thorol's haste spell, Gorbadoc was able to run ahead of the trolls and warn the others that they were approaching. Meanwhile, Varys succeeded in setting the oil and more dead trolls on fire, which prevented other trolls from approaching from that direction. Now the characters focus their attention to the northeast to meet the trolls which Gorbadoc had just warned them about. They even managed to get more burning oil put down in that direction. While all this was going on, Gorbadoc kept saying, "I told you all there were a lot of trolls in here." The leading trolls were soon killed and set on fire, which drove back the remaining trolls. The characters decided to use the break from the troll attacks to send Garrett back. He was to tell the sergeant major to start bringing up the wagon train. Meanwhile, Gorbadoc went scouting ahead in the Great Cavern to see if anything had changed in that direction. And here's a zoomed out view showing where everyone is currently located in relation to one another. At the bottom of the screenshot, you can see the Sergeant Major at the head of the convoy. In the middle of the screenshot, you can see Garrett, who's moving south to talk to the Sergeant Major. In the top center, you can see Gorbadoc while he's scouting around up ahead. And of course, there in the upper right corner, you can see all the other characters and all the different burning trolls that they've set on fire. Although they're currently off screen, Gorbadoc soon spotted another huge group of trolls approaching from the eastern side of the Great Cavern. Gorb rushed back to warn the others, and Obrak immediately ran up to intercept the trolls. While this was going on, Gorbadoc said, "I distinctly remember telling everyone that there were a lot of trolls in here." Once Obrak realized the sheer number of trolls he was facing, he deployed a Christmas gift snowman to absorb some of the damage he expected to soon receive. The rest of the characters left the troll dens and returned to the main cavern just as the sergeant major arrived at the head of the convoy. Here is a zoomed out view with the lights on so you can see everything. In the upper right hand corner, you can see that Aramis has gone to help Obrak with the trolls. Some of the trolls did in fact stop to battle with Obrak and Aramis. However, most of them focused on attacking the caravan, which had now come into their line of sight. Garrett, who was still invisible, took hold of the lead mule's harness and began guiding the caravan north in the general direction of the exit passage. This freed up the sergeant major so he could help with the trolls. Now remember, Garrett does not have infravision, so to him everything is in near total darkness. However, he had previously accompanied Varys when he met with the Drow commander earlier, so Garrett did have a vague idea of where to go from here. Now, of course, Rabnuno does have infravision, but he was not of much help. Garrett doesn't speak even surface Elvish, never mind Drow Elvish, and Rabnuno doesn't speak surface common either. And even if Rabnuno had tried to point out which way to go, Garrett would not have been able to see him in the darkness. At any rate, it was now absolutely critical to stop the trolls before they got in amongst the carts and mules. So, all in the same combat round, Thorol cast Fireball, Niobe cast a Blade Barrier, and the Sergeant Major cast Hold Person. Almost all of the leading group of trolls were destroyed by the twin effects of the Fireball and the Blade Barrier spell. And the Sergeant Major's Hold Person spell stopped the trolls at the very front of the pack. However, other trolls were already beginning to circle around the Blade Barrier and the burning troll bodies. Aramis and Obrak were still holding out as best they could, but it was like trying to prevent the tide from coming in. There were just simply too many trolls to deal with. Meanwhile, Corbinat kept shouting, "I clearly stated that there were a lot of trolls in here." Thorol cast a Wall of Ice spell to help stop the follow-up trolls from attacking, while Garrett, who is just visible here, pointed out at the top of the screen, continued to guide the wagon train north across the Great Cavern. Meanwhile, Aramis and Obrak broke combat with the other trolls and grouped back up with Varys and the Sergeant Major. Pointed out here, notice the Drow sentry who is observing but not interfering with anything. Unfortunately, due to the darkness, Thorol did not see that his Wall of Ice spell did not completely reach the cavern wall at its north end. The trolls soon found this gap in the Wall of Ice and began rushing through it. One troll grabbed a mule and cart to prevent it from escaping, while another troll attacked the pack mule. The characters then began attacking those trolls in return. The Drow sentry has now backed into an alcove to stay out of the way. Thorol used his frost wand to create a second wall of ice to delay the follow-up trolls. Meanwhile, the other characters finished off the trolls which were attacking the mules. Back to the south, Varys and his dog Spuds McKenzie were off by themselves while Varys used his flame sword to set the held trolls on fire. But suddenly the flames illuminated a new threat, a horde of troglodytes approaching out of the darkness to the east. They had all been attracted by the light and noise and were coming to investigate. Back at the wagon train, Nio broke open a crate of oil flasks and began stuffing several into the pockets of her cleric robes. Another small detail here, notice that the mule has been injured by the troll attack. Varys and Spuds began running back towards the wagon train, pursued not only by the troglodytes, but also the remaining trolls from the original encounter. They had finally worked their way around the fires that the characters had set and were now out for revenge. By now, the trolls in the north had broken through Thorol's wall of ice and once again moved to attack the wagon train. Thorol used his frost wand to create yet another wall of ice, giving the other characters a chance to regroup. At the head of the convoy, Garrett continued leading the wagon train through the darkness, with glowing patches of lichen as his only guide. Facing the horde of trolls, it was at this point that the Sergeant Major made a King Henry V St. Crispin's Day speech to the others.
We few, we happy few, we band of brothers, for he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother.
Meanwhile, Nio passed out her oil flasks to the other characters further back. The plan was to create a wall of fire at the narrowest point of the tunnel, preventing the trolls from continuing to pursue them. Varys, Obrak, and the Sergeant Major disengaged from the trolls and fell back behind the oil trap so that it could be set on fire. Gorbadoc then tossed a torch on the oil while Varys lit another pool with his flaming sword. Notice that the Drow sentry finally decided to leave his post and return to their encampment. But now a new threat appeared. Back at the middle of the convoy, Aramis was suddenly surprised by a joint attack of bugbears and gargoyles approaching out of the darkness to the northeast. They too had been alerted by all the light and noise and came to get in on the action. The bugbears charged in on foot while the gargoyles dropped out of the air to attack from above. One gargoyle even landed on a cart, intending to loot it. Thorol used his wand to create still yet another wall of ice at ground level to stop at least some of the bugbears from advancing. Meanwhile, Niobe cast a sunburst spell to temporarily blind all monsters within its range. This would hopefully disorient them long enough for the wagon train to escape. Here's a zoomed out lights on view showing where everyone was located at this point. First, you can see Aramis in the center. Most of the other characters were still at the southern point where the trolls were located just off screen. And off-screen to the northwest, Garrett continued to lead the mule carts out of the ambush zone. Another detail pointed out here is one of the mules was panicked by the gargoyle attack and had run off. As you can see up at the top of the screenshot, there's a gargoyle looting a cart. The gargoyle actually flew off with a crate taken from the cart. I rolled randomly to determine what the gargoyle took, based on the contents of that particular cart. Luckily, it turned out to just be mundane supplies and not valuable trade goods. At this point, the drone noble with whom Varys had previously negotiated rode out on her nightmare mount, and I've inserted a pic here to illustrate what a nightmare looks like. She also wielded a magic weapon called a death lance, which literally crackled with negative energy. Upon her appearance, the trolls, gargoyles, and bugbears all began to retreat out of fear. With the monsters driven back, the wagon train was able to move out of the ambush zone and into the exit passage. Notice also that the mule which had previously run off has recovered from its panic and is now moving to rejoin the other mules. With the monsters gone, the drone noble rode up to Varys and said that in exchange for her assistance, she had a task for him. She said that a greater noble of her house was recently captured by the Kuatoans, a race of fishmen who dwell here in the Underdark. She also knows that this noble is being held captive at a Kuatoan religious shrine, which lies several miles along the road from here. She requested Varys to use his servants, the other characters, and spy on the Kuatoan shrine to find out where exactly the drone noble is being held prisoner. He was then to rescue her, if at all possible, and escort her to Arrowhigh Sinlu. Varys immediately accepted this task for the greater glory of Loth. The Sergeant Major stood nearby and grumbled at all this consorting with the evil Drow elves, but he could do little else about it. Catching up to Garrett and the wagon train, the characters got everything reorganized and quickly pressed on, wanting to put some distance between themselves and the Great Cavern. Once they felt they were a safe distance away, the party stopped for the night to rest up and heal everyone. Alright, well that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. Leave a comment if you can. Let me know what you think. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. Share the video if you can. And anything you can do to help support the channel, I appreciate it. Thanks again. Bye for now.
The greatest adventure is what lies